But there's quite a nice, this Green Edmonton website has a real nice blog there, and description of the home. So, earlier I asked how many homes in Saskatoon are solar heated. Well, the answer is that they all are. And they're maybe not 95%, but almost. And why do we say that? Because if the sun were not there, it would be minus 273 degrees Celsius outdoors. And we've really lost that. I know people who are farmers, they know that their south-sloping fields will, be ready for planting earlier and earlier. They understand nature a lot more. City planners, I think my favorite comment about a lot of them is they just take a blob of spaghetti and just go, oh, there's our street layout. Don't have to move the spaghetti a little bit, we need a bigger area for a park or something. Now we've really lost that. And the Greeks, 2,500 years ago, had this figured out, and they laid out whole new towns. There's a city called Priene, which is in Asia Minor, which was a Greek settlement. And the entire community was laid out for passive solar heating 2,500 years ago. And we've just completely lost that in terms of how we plan our cities. So just in conclusion, we now have a number of net zero energy homes built in Canada and the US. We don't know if this house will be exactly net zero, and a lot depends on how it's operated. And I don't know what this TV consumes here, but if they leave it on 24 hours a day, it's certainly going to consume more than if it weren't. And so the operation of the home will be important for that. The incremental cost on these homes to go completely net zero is still substantial, but the costs are coming down, and about 40% of all the energy we use in North America is for buildings. And so if we want a sustainable world where we've got our carbon emissions under control and the ocean isn't rising and so on, we have to get our buildings to a much, much higher standard than they are right now. And I'm very pleased to be associated with a project that's not just talking, but doing it. So, any questions? Yes?
This double wall construction,
Yeah.
the sample is over in the museum there. Both of these walls are load bearing, right?
No. The outer one is the load bearing wall, and the inner one basically is more just holding up the drywall and the insulation. So all the structural members are over top of the members.
Well, that explains why you've got 2x6s on the outside and 2x4s on the inside.
Yeah, although I'm not sure in this house whether the...
That's the way it is in the samples.
Okay, is it? Okay, yeah. But I know in my house that there's just 2x4 and 2x4. Yeah. You can build with 2x4s. What?
And they're straddled.
No, usually they're right in line with them, but the insulation goes right in between, so I mean, it fills up the cabin. I've seen apartment buildings that are built out of 2x4s, and they're 3 stories high. I mean, you can.
Yeah. Well, that's why I couldn't understand why they went to the 2x6s when they had an inside wall that was 2x4s already.
Catherine, do you know that exactly? Are there a set of plans here for the house?
I don't actually have them with me.
Okay.
I do know that, I did notice on the sample in the museum that they had used a continuous 2x10 header, a single header around the perimeter of the house, and I'm wondering if that's why they had the 2x6 wall for the structure.
Perhaps, yeah. I know these manufactured homes, when they're moved, there's an awful lot of racking and forces like that. So it would be a little stiffer with the 2x6.
Well, I took the tour on Saturday and he mentioned that right now they're using a 2x10 and they're going to go to a laminate and use that for the perimeter, and that's actually part of the load bearing.
situation.
Yeah. Because the bottom is already a laminate, and they're gonna put a laminate on the top one too.
Is there any insulation in the floor?
Right now?
Yeah?
No, but the walls around the perimeter, the bottom here are all, I think they're 2x6s and they're filled with, but that's just temporary because the house is gonna sit on a basement when it's
Or
moved out.
room on the basement?
Yeah, it's gonna be moved out to Langham area.
Those hot water collectors, the evacuated glass tube and the flat plate, are they gonna supply all of the hot water requirements, including for use in heating?
I don't think so. It'd be close, but the solar electric panels, a small bit of that will be used for heating here. So I haven't looked at the final. They've done some computer simulations using a HOT 2000 program, and the numbers are in there.
Could you emerge with these balls?
No, you can't.
I don't think you can on the standard ones, but I believe somebody now makes one that you can put a dimmer on. But if you try it on the standard ones, I think you'll burn these out.
It says on this one,
Okay.
not for dimming.
Not for dimming, okay. Yes.
Do you know much about geothermal heating, and is it worth it, or the benefits?
Yeah, geothermal heating is extracting heat from the ground, and as I said earlier, the deep ground temperature here is about 5 degrees Celsius. So you can extract heat from that and use it to warm a house. And some of the net zero homes in Canada have used them. And here we tried to keep it fairly simple. And, I think on a standard house now, it probably starts at about $25,000 for a system and goes up. So.
I think that all the solar collectors and the geothermal, it's all really sexy. It's all really expensive, and if you can just insulate your house properly so that you're not needing the energy like an ordinary house, you're a long ways ahead for a lot fewer dollars than you are going geothermal and solar.
Yeah, I don't know if your dad told me this. An engineer told me one time, he says, anything that has moving parts is going to fail. In fact, it must fail. He said, we've never invented a perfect bearing. But things like insulation, if it's put in properly, there's no maintenance or any kind of, something to wear out.
I'm currently doing some tenant improvements in a building in Calgary, a 10-story office building. It's a sexy building because it's a geothermal heated building, but the walls are glass from floor to ceiling, so you have R4 in the walls. So
yeah, I know. So less than 1% of the people in the world live in this cold climate. We do here, and the tourism people never advertise that. But we have to design for our climate, and these floor-to-ceiling glass things here are not appropriate. In the second row?
Yeah, I noticed that your R60 in your walls and R5 is basically what you get out of those windows, even though they're top.
Yeah, at the center of the glass, the R value is higher. But when you take into account the conduction through the frame and the spacers, it lowers the overall value to about.
I was wondering what you thought of these, like these roll shutters on the side, so they come down automatically at night, sort of thing. Is that not?
Yeah, on the exterior. I've seen them on the exterior of some buildings, and they don't have a very high R value. I think they might be about R2 insulating value. But no, that can be. They're almost as expensive as windows, though, but they're not cheap. But I know in Europe they're very popular. I've seen them on a lot of buildings. They also provide a bit of sound control. And when you put modern cars on old cobblestone streets, narrow streets,